do it to my computer. Okay.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to our second member-to-member Zoom virtual program. And tonight we have Lela. She is going to give us some tips and tricks on lighting big groups at a wedding, and a little lagniappe on the details. She did weddings for about 20 years or so. What, right, Lela?
Probably 30.
30? Okay, sorry. And so she's got a few things she can share with us. She's our photographer of the year, and past president, and now she's working on teaching us. So thank you, Lela, for agreeing to do this and sharing your knowledge. So let's get started.
Thank you, Gretchen, and welcome everyone. I hope that you can all learn a few little tips and tricks tonight. I'm focusing mostly on posing rather than lighting, but I probably will mention a few lighting techniques as well. So I'm going to start by letting y'all know my very first photo job, not wedding, but it was my first wedding, but the very first time I did photography for someone else was way back for my cousin's wedding. He was about 10 years younger than me, getting married. He knew I could take pretty decent pictures, and he talked to me about it, and I agreed, and I gave it to him for a gift, paid the processing and the film, and gave it to him. The pictures came out okay, but y'all, I didn't have a wedding. I got married at the Justice of the Peace. I had been to maybe 3 weddings my entire life. I had no clue what to expect, what was going on, or much less what to photograph and when to photograph it. But I just kind of went with the flow, and we did get some pretty good pictures, and they were happy with them. So I'm like, cool. So they told other people, and I'm sure many of you probably started this way as well. They told people started talking to me about shooting weddings for them, their friends, their brothers or sisters, relatives, and so on and so forth. And I decided if I was going to say yes, that I had to start charging, because I just couldn't afford to provide all that for them. And if I was going to start charging, I had to start learning. So I did attend several workshops every time I could. I was at some kind of workshop in Houston, New Orleans, and a couple in Baton Rouge. But anyway, it grew and grew. My business grew and grew. My wedding packages grew and grew in volume and price. And here we are now. I'm retired from weddings, and I don't have no desire to shoot a wedding. I enjoy attending them at times, but that's not even a thrill too much anymore. But anyway, this is about posing groups. Now, the very first thing, and probably the most important thing that I can tell you tonight, is to have an assistant with you when you shoot a wedding. I know that a lot of people go out on their own to shoot. I did a few times, and it didn't take me long to contact some people and get somebody to help me, not only as an assistant, but also second shooters. So I've had several people work with me over the years. Perhaps the one that worked with me the longest is Leah Abear. Many of you met her last year at the membership drive. Leah loves weddings. She adores weddings. She could live in a wedding, and she was a very good assistant. So when Leah and I would get to a wedding venue, we would first scope out a place to be the base for our equipment. We would unpack stuff, set it up, and get going. Leah would take the men and shoot the grooms and the groomsmen. I would take the bride and shoot the brides and the bridesmaids and her families, and Leah would do the same thing with the men. If they would agree to a first look, we would do all that, And then we would start a little bit earlier, probably 2 hours before the ceremony. If they'd agreed to a first look, we would do all the individual stuff, then get together, and we would make a big production so they could really, it would be a special moment for them. We would let the groom stand at the front of the church, and we would have her, the bride's dad, escort her, just like it'd be the wedding. So, you know, it was a big deal. So we took as many pictures as we could before the ceremony. So I'm going to start talking about posing the guys. Now, Leah did the majority of the pictures that I'm going to show you tonight. Leah and my later assistant, Jennifer, did probably 99% of the pictures. I'm going to share my screen. And let's see what I got here. Here we go. Okay, so this is some grooms and pictures. The first thing I'm going to show you is a picture that I would suggest you don't do this pose. Can y'all see this? Can everyone see this? Okay. So all the guys are facing straight toward the camera. This is not a picture that any of my people took because they know not to do this. This is another picture, someone else's picture. All the guys are facing directly toward the camera. That's not a very good way to pose the guys. And they're all in what I call the famous fig leaf pose. Fig leaf pose. And that's with their hands clasped front and center. This is not attractive. Even if a few people are doing it, it's not as bad, but it's especially like this with everybody doing it. It's just, I would just urge you never to do this. So now that I have that out of the way, I'm just going to go through some pictures. Leah took this, groom and the groomsmen. We like to do some casual things and some action shots. And so she was just letting them walk toward her and telling them to kind of visit with each other. This is always a good picture, and I have more examples of this as well. This is the same guys posed. I like the way that they're leaning on the post. Leah did this. It's not a prize-winning picture, but I think it's kind of cute, and they liked it a lot. Okay, if they have beer, all the better. They're gonna have fun. They'll relax if they have a beer. The groomsmen would probably rather be doing anything than taking pictures. So if they can have a beer, then it's good. They'll be more cooperative, unless they're drunk, and then they won't be cooperative, I promise. This is the same group with the wide angle. Love this. This is one of my favorites. Jennifer took this. Same thing. This is Leah did this, I think. But it's the same concept. They all have their sunglasses on. Just have fun with them. Let them have a good time. When it's just the groom and the best man, or the groom and his dad, I like to do something like this. I always like to try to show relationships. This is I've done this at almost every wedding, and I just have the groom put his hand on the shoulder, and then they shake hands with their right hand and look at each other. I usually would take one of them looking at each other and one of them looking at the camera, and then they can cut up. I always encourage them to cut up. Let's see, Jennifer did this. This is, if any of you were in Lake Arthur for the retreat last October, this is where this is. And now notice they all have their hands in their pockets. Now, I've tried to tell the girls that assist me to let them turn toward the groom and put their outside hand in their pocket, not both hands. When they put both hands in their pocket, I don't know, you see my mouse pointer, you see how it pulls their pants like this, and it's not attractive. It doesn't look good in pictures. So it's best if they just have one hand in their pocket with their elbows bent, and maybe not even their whole hand, just their fingers in their pocket, and turn toward the groom. Here we go. I love this picture. Same group of guys. The only problem I have with this picture is that this guy right here is not the groom. He's a groomsman. This is the groom right here. That's the only problem I have with this. I love the picture. I love these kind of moments. And it's set up very well. The composition is really nice. Love it. And notice they have one hand in their pocket, but they got the beer in the other hand. Here's another group posed on the steps of the bride's home. This is the groom in the front, and they're pretty well, they look casual, they look comfortable. They're not spaced the greatest, especially in the back row, but it's okay. The grooms, when you're shooting the grooms and the groomsmen, they're almost always in a hurry. So you want to try to work with them as quickly as possible, yet get some good pictures. And they, in the end, most of them don't care. It's the brides and the women that care. Some of the guys care. I'm sorry, I don't want to act like they don't care at all. Another one. This is his dad. And here we have a group of guys at the church. They don't have their hands in the pockets, but their hands are just hanging. The one thing that I would point out about this picture, even if their hands would be slightly in their pocket, it may be better. They are at a nice angle toward the groom. But I like to show a little bit of cuff on the guy. See this guy right here, second to the left, he's got some cuffs showing here. And I think that looks really nice. And when you're posing a group of guys like that, I would just urge you to ask them to pull out their sleeves a little bit, so that the end of the sleeve or the cuff will show somewhat. It looks so much nicer and dressier. Some of these pictures are so old, y'all. I grabbed some folders from my storage closet. And this is the last wedding that I photographed. It was about 3 years ago. Jennifer took this while I was shooting the girls. The only thing this is the dad's in front. The groom has my favorite pose, but it's not bad because the other guys are not standing like that, at least not where you can see. But had I photographed this, I would have asked the dads to unbutton their jackets so they wouldn't be pulling like they are. It's just some Cajun men. They don't care. But I see that. And I love a military groom in the military with a uniform. This is just, they're so nice. This was a few years ago. This is a pretty nice pose. You see how this guy on the end has his hands just in his pocket with his shirt sleeve showing. That looks really nice. And some of them have both hands in their pockets. I was photographing the girls at this point. Here we go with the walking again. This is nice. Just have the groom in front of everyone. And that's it for back to the figure pose. That's it for the guys. I'm going to go to the girls. Now, I probably did photograph most of these, so I'm going to point out some of the things that I did wrong. This is really nice composition here. The background is real pretty. I may have, in hindsight, brought them a little farther away from the door, closer to me, and then I would have stepped back because this is a long hall. I had plenty of room to work here. I should have done that. With the girls, when they're holding their bouquets, you want them to hold their bouquets below their waist. So, and their arms not to block their waistlines. You see how these girls, they're totally blocking their waistline. And if you have them hold their bouquets a little bit lower and just keep their arms, their elbows bent and their arms slightly off of their bodies, slightly away, not far away, but slightly away from their bodies, it's going to make a more attractive line and they'll like it a lot better. But I don't care for the bouquets in front of their chest here. Have fun. This is the bride's idea. She loved it. You can see my flash reflecting in the glass on the door. But they had a real good time here. We actually went to the police station and rode in a police car between the wedding and the reception. It was a lot of fun. And this is another group. I find that we take so many pictures, and the bride and the groom they do so many pictures that if they can sit down for a little while, they are usually more than happy. If I suggest that they be seated, they're like, yes, it's time, I'm tired. The lighting on this is not good. It was not a good time of the day, and I probably had an on-camera flash here, but it wasn't strong enough to compensate for the harsh sunlight. But honestly, they didn't mind. This is better lighting, same groups, girls standing. You notice how they're holding their flowers a little bit lower, and they look pretty good. Now the bride could have stepped forward one step just a little bit, but that's not bad. This is another wedding we did at Mars Landing. It's the same one with the guys on the porch with the beer. So I was shooting this while Jennifer was doing the guys. These girls are posed really nicely. The bride has a beautiful line with her leg, and I try to get them to kind of cross their legs at their knees just a tad and just pick their heel up off of the heel that's closer to me, pick it up like an inch off of the ground so their knee bends slightly, and it makes this nice curved line. Some of the other girls, it's hard to tell with their dresses, but they were instructed to stand like that. I don't know if they did. Now this little 2-year-old, we were lucky to get her in the picture, but she was so cute. Here we go, I bet they rehearsed this. This is so cute. Let them have fun. They like to do that. And this is a group in the bride's home. Before the ceremony, we started photography at her house, and this room is tiny. So here we have a tiny room with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people, and that's always difficult to pose a group like that in a tiny room. So I like to use the sofa, and I usually let the bride sit in the middle. She shouldn't have been leaning back like she is, but she did. Other than that, I like this. It's a nice pose. And you notice the girls on the floor have their feet. I call this a Z pose, where their knees are together and their feet are pointed outwards. I use that in the studio a lot as well. Here's another picture at the altar. This is a different kind of bouquet that these girls are holding. So it's kind of hard to hold that below your waist, but they look pretty. That's a big bridal bouquet too. I wish she would have had it a little bit lower so that her waistline would have shown. Okay, this is before the ceremony in the dressing room, the bride and her mother getting ready. I really love the lady in the mirror here. This is the mother-in-law looking on. It's really a sweet picture. Same wedding. It's a very pleasing composition here. It's posed, but it's not posed. It's very relaxed. Here's the same girls at the altar. And notice most of them have their bouquets at their waistline. You can ask them, but they don't always comply. Another one. Here's another little bitty room. This is our pastor's office at our church. And just, with use the sofa, use whatever you can find. And then we're back at the front. So that's some ideas for the girls. And now we're gonna well, let me go to kids. So if there's a bunch of kids, I love to get the bride down on the same level with the little girls. This is just priceless. And this is probably one of the most loved pictures from this wedding. Here we go with the bride sitting at the altar with the kids, and then this bride is reading a letter from her husband, and this is all her kids they're looking on. So be sure and include the children, because if you don't, the bride will regret it if they don't have those pictures. Okay, so now we're gonna have some of these are from the reception, some of them are from the wedding itself. I'll notice how these people are posed behind the wedding cake, typical family picture. Notice how there's a connection between all of these people. They look like they belong together. They're the family, and this is the bride's family with her new husband. Sometimes it's kind of hard to keep these hands posed correctly, and when you're working, you just have to go with the flow and make suggestions. And this is where my assistant will instruct the people that we're photographing how to put their hands, how to lean in toward one another, how to tip their heads toward one another. Leah was really good at that. And here we have the bride and groom seated. I like for them to be able to sit down. They're attractive sitting down like this. Most of the time they are. Then you can move the families in and out. So you have any number of combinations of groups. You can move them in and out. You can do his family, her family, aunts, uncles, grandparents, nieces, nephews, the whole shebang. And then everybody if you want. So you can have and the bride and groom can just sit there and relax and enjoy the time together rather than standing on their feet the whole time. And this is a beautiful venue. This is the Springs Ballroom in Iota, and I've done so many weddings there. But this little gazebo is where they get married under there, and it's hard to pose a big bridal party here. So this party is enormous. So rather than have them all line up in a straight line, it's easier to kind of double them up. It compacts the composition, brings the bride and groom a little closer in so you don't lose them in the group. And it just makes for a nice picture. Now, I like to mix the couples, but it takes a long time to pose couples as opposed to the girls on one side, the guys on the other side. So if we have time, though, I like to get the bridal party with whoever they walked with and have them pose like that. Here's a straight line pose here. See the difference here? Well, there's more people here than there is here, but I just think this is a little more pleasing. But this is nice. This is our Mars Landing wedding. Now I find that the guys though are turned too much toward the groom here. They should be more of a 45-degree angle, but some of them are just like a 90-degree angle. Okay, if y'all were at the retreat, y'all will feel sorry for me having to do this. This was in the same room that we had our lessons at the retreat. It's a small room for a big old crowd like this. I was standing behind a pool table that had food on it, and a light coming down from the ceiling to light the pool players. Well, I was photographing between the light and the buffet that was laid out on the pool table. So that was quite an ordeal. And the pool table's not too far away from this wall. So they had this dresser set up. I just thought the setup was just gorgeous. But look how many of them there are to pose there. So this was about the only thing we could do. However, that one guy in the back is half hidden, but and I didn't get another picture with his head showing. So, you know, that's another good reason to take several pictures and have them move around a little bit. I probably did notice that, but trying to keep the pool light out of the picture and the pool table and the food out of the picture was probably, you know, you have so much to think about when you're doing things like this. But they liked the picture, and this was really a nice wedding. But that room, y'all, is too small for this. It's a nice big church. Oh, the bride looks kind of scared here, but this is a good example of them posed as couples that they walked with who they walked with. It's kind of tricky to pose them to where it's I don't know how to say it. I don't know the word that I want to use, but it's hard to pose them where the girls are not too close together and the guy, you know what I mean? They just it's they're not staggered well enough here, but it turned out pretty well. Okay, here's one of my pet peeves. I think a round table for the bridal table is simply gorgeous. When they're decorated, they're just so pretty. But look where the bride and groom are. You can barely see them. The cake is so tall. They're behind the table. They're split by the cake here, and things I could have done at this time, at this moment, to remedy that. For one thing, I could have done is to have the bride move over toward the groom, and then have them kind of flatten out so that they're not wrapped around the table. Because a round table, the people tend to come to wrap around it and come towards you. So that puts the bride and groom furthest from the lens, and it minimizes them. And this is their day. They should not be minimized. So there's a picture later of a similar situation that's done better. Here's the bride and groom sitting down while the people come around. Notice the relationships. Now, this lady, this is his mother. I don't know how I missed this. This hand is terrible right here. I should have had her turned toward her son with her left hand on his shoulder or his arm rather than just laying on top there. We want to show relationships, but you want it to look attractive. Okay, here's another group of the same people. This is girls on one side, guys on the other. This is my granddaughter. Here's a real good example of hands in both pockets. Please don't do that. One pocket. And then this, you know, churches, you work in such a variety of different venues, and you have to adapt. This church, this is actually the church that I go to, so I'm pretty familiar with it, but I like the way that you can pose a bridal party. I like to put the bride and groom closer to the lens. They are what this whole day is about. They're the ones that's paying you. They need to be featured closer. It's their day. So we have the girls in the back. This is the maid of honor and the best man right in the back, and then have them come down onto the stairs. So it worked out really well. I may have had this little girl move over a little bit. It would have probably been a little bit better, but it came out okay. I was only helping Leah photograph this. This is my granddaughter, so I was not supposed to be working, but you know. And this is the picture that Phil Colbert took. Philip photographed my other granddaughter's wedding last year. And this was a difficult situation because the sun's coming in, but he lit this so well, and he posed them really nicely. This was a big group as well. They had a lot of people. This the bride and groom sitting as we move people in and out. Another example. And this, I love photographing here. This is the grand ballroom in Crowley. It's actually an old theater, and the stairs are facing a big window, and the light is just amazing there. And I also had one of my lights set up on an umbrella here, and they like to have fun, so they did this. This is probably one of the most difficult weddings that I ever, not weddings, but receptions. This table, which is in back of them, is a round table, and it was kind of in the middle of the room. The picture's awful. I don't care. Don't try to do this picture, but I had such a hard time figuring out at the time what to do with these people because of the way the table was. Had I put them in the back of the table, it would have minimized the bride and groom. And that black or maybe whatever curtain back there is just awful. I don't like that at all. So when we did their cake cutting pictures, I made a point to use this area right here, and this is what that looks like, which is much nicer. So when you've got a weird situation like that, go all around your table and look at the view and kind of adjust to try to get the best view. I love the way this looks with the stereo coming down. It just makes some nice leading lines. And here's the picture that I was going to show you. The quality of this picture is not good, but the posing is so much better. This is a round table, beautifully done, but the bride and groom are on one side of this enormously tall cake, and the groomsmen are on that side, and then the bridesmaids are on the other side, but they're not really they're not wrapping around the table. They're not totally straight, but they're close enough to the same plane as the bride and groom that it doesn't minimize the bride and groom. So this is a good way to handle that situation. And then this is their cake cutting picture. I don't think they're doing cakes as big as they used to, huh? And then, let's see, this is couples as well. I like this. This is a nice pose. Bride and groom with parents. Okay, this is at a bed and breakfast in Scott. I'm not mistaken. I think it was Steel Guest House. I'm not sure, but this was probably one of the nicest weddings I ever photographed. It was just beautiful. If you notice, the bride and groom are furthest from the camera. Luckily, while I was photographing that, I noticed it, and we switched the bride and groom to the bottom and put the flower girl up in the back, which looks a lot better. There's a few things that could have been done a little better here, but just to show you the difference of the bride and groom. Here's just a line them up and shoot them. Look where everybody's looking. Where do you think they're looking? Somebody must be taking cell phone pictures. Y'all ever have that situation? It makes you want to scream, look at me. But oh well. Same bride and groom. We still have a few awkward glances on this one too.
I usually do yell at them. Look at me. Look at this camera.
Yes. I have many times. Yeah. It just, I want to scream it. This, another round table, but they're pretty much all on the same plane here. I noticed the cake. I think it's not the trend so much anymore to have those 3-foot tall cakes as it used to be. Here's another one, the bride and groom on one side. Phil took this. This is one from Catherine's wedding. And the reason I put this in is to show you the angle. Philip pulled up a chair and was standing on a chair to take these pictures. He had his lighting set up, and he had he climbed up on that chair. I'd have been terrified that someone would have ran into my lighting setup and knocked it to the floor. But look, or me to the floor. He was a sport, I'm telling you. And I love this.
He did the same thing for my daughter's wedding. He did it from above. But there was so many girls around, you can't even see all of them.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much the case here too. See, even this one, we got the little flower girl. She was in, but yeah, always try different angles. My assistant Leah would do that too. She would get on chairs. She would get on the floor. She actually would lay on the floor sometimes, and it's amazing what those different angles can do. And having an assistant that does that, thank goodness. I want those pictures, but I don't want to do that. So that was wonderful. So back to the beginning of that one.
Yeah, he did that for a lot for Sarah's wedding, the angle like that for the cake, and the second line he kind of had a lot of from underneath,
Oh yeah, I loved it. So does anybody have any questions or anything to add?
I noticed a lot of the pictures. I had a wedding Saturday. Well, the guys did stand there with the fig leaf pose. I have that picture. And you notice too, like the girl on the end, they always like stand almost like this, like a where they're almost showing their back. Like the girl, I saw that in a couple of yours. And I noticed that in the ones I took this weekend. It's like they want to turn like this on the end. Like
I know. I noticed the guys do the same. Well, especially like in this one, the guys are like that. They the farther out they go, the flatter they get. But yeah, I know, and
it is very difficult to get everybody to do the same thing, and you're trying to explain it to them, and then they're just moving. I'm like, no, the other way.
I know, and it can get so difficult, and that's where having an assistant helps so much, because when Leah would be posing people, and she'd say, Miss Leela's going to change this, but I'm going to put y'all this way to start. And so I would be 10 or 20 feet away looking at them, and I would see what needs to be changed. So I would go up to her and say, look, we need to do this, this, and this. And we usually got some pretty good pictures, but there's still people who are going to turn or, stick both hands in their pockets or whatever. It's not going to be perfect. You're just going to have to do the best you can.
It is very hard to get all those people perfect.
Oh goodness, I know. And these pictures that I'm showing y'all, most of them were in my storage closet in folders, and I just went and grabbed a bunch of folders and loaded them onto my computer because they were not on my computer anymore. So I have some that probably had better pictures. There was one in particular that was just a gorgeous wedding, but I can't find that folder for anything. So I'm going to do one more little round. This is detail pictures, and I was talking about angles and close-ups, and I'm going to give you a few little hints and tricks for detail pictures. This Leah was adamant about putting rings in cakes. So, and
Joel does
this,
that. Joel does
I-
that.
oh yeah, she did. Oh look, one time she had icing all over a ring, and then she dropped it in the champagne glass, and oh my gosh, we had to go clean that ring before, we would hurry up and clean the ring. But yeah, there's all kind of things you can do at the wedding. This is another strange angle of the wedding cake, big old tall wedding cake. This is a fill picture again. He get you be sure to get the details, and I just love this. This is
Mhm.
another one. Catherine, this is from my granddaughter's wedding that Philip did. She left a spacer on her ring. She forgot to take it off the sizer. So she was so disappointed that this little sizer right
Right.
here was on there. So what I did was, oh, here's another one. I'll tell y'all what I did later. This is a typical marriage license ring, rosary that we
Oh,
did
that's
with
a pretty
bouquet.
picture.
Thank you. This is Gabby's cake. I just put it in there because it was so pretty. But the lighting on here is really nice. Try to get some double lighting going on, so that texture of the decorations will show. Okay,
Her
one thing.
wedding was gorgeous. Her wedding, that whole wedding party, the flowers, that was so
Oh,
gorgeous.
it was, huh? They've been married 3 years this month. So, this is another thing we like to do at the weddings. I have a little LED flashlight that I would take, and we would use it to make a little spot like this, and feature the rings. And I mean, they have all kind of pretty things, and you can put it together, and it's so fine.
Mhm. Oh, that's nice too.
Isn't that pretty? This is this was on the flyer. When the bride and groom would come to the studio, usually I had the engagement and bridal portraits included in my packages. So I would suggest that they would bring their rings and shoes and bouquet and all that good stuff in when they did either one of those sessions. So this bride brought her stuff in for her engagement session. And I set this up in the studio. This is so much nicer than what you could do at the wedding, because you have control over. I mean, I had my studio lights on there. Of course, almost always had a studio light at a wedding, especially the later weddings that I did. But I mean, I have total control here of the lights, and I can play while they were changing. I was playing around doing this. Sometimes they'd even leave their stuff at the studio for me to play with, and then they'd come get it. The groom for this wedding was an avid fisherman. And as you see, there's fish hooks on his ring. But I was trying to be creative, so I went to my husband's tackle box and got some rusty old hooks, big hooks, and we made this. Love this. Now this bride was not into hearts, so she didn't appreciate it as much as I did. But I really see, you can just be creative. And this was another one done in the studio. They actually left this here for me at the studio for a couple of days for me to play. Can you imagine?
Lela, if I may ask, what lens were you using on those?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. Probably for that, it probably a 28 to 80, something like that. 24 to 80, something. Nikon. This I may have had I'd have to look. This is I probably have this on this is probably my 150 prime. This is Catherine and Jeremy's stuff after the wedding, since she had her sizer in her ring. I said, bring your stuff to the studio and we'll get some more pictures. So we did, and I put everything together and made, of course, put some little artsy effects on it, and did this. And notice I took the artsy effect off of the rings here.
Mhm.
just snap away anything. I love this. You can do this at a wedding. Put their rings between their wine glasses. Together.
Oh, cool.
Now this is, I believe this is the natural light. I'm not sure because I did this with flash and with natural light, or I may have had a distant. I don't even remember, but this was real tricky. I would try to do it with a little backlight maybe, but nothing real spectacular, nothing real bright. This is from the wedding. You always get the rings.
I forgot that Saturday. That's the one picture I forgot, and I do that at every wedding.
And this is hard, and this is hard to post. This is so hard to post. This is hard to make it look graceful. So
yeah,
look at this.
Oh, I love that one.
This is done in the studio. This bride and groom came to the studio before their wedding for bridal portraits in their bridal clothes. Oh, I was thrilled. That was like, oh, that was wonderful. And so instead of doing the typical hand pose with the bouquet, I said, let's try this. Look how graceful that is. Isn't it nice?
Oh, I like that.
And notice the sleeve, his shirt sleeve is showing a little bit. So this is very well done. And if I do say so myself, I love it. Another one, same session. See, you can't hardly do this at the wedding. You can do this at the wedding, but you'd have to practice this a little bit to be able to know, when, because when you get ready to do it at a wedding, you want it to come to you. And if you're like me, I'll forget.
Yeah, and I can't believe I forgot that Saturday because
I know there's always something you forget. Always. Me anyway. This was done at her bridal session at the venue. We did her bridal portraits. And then this was at the wedding. The different brides, you can tell. This was a total mistake. My flash did not go off, but it was one of the favorite pictures of the whole day. So I learned from that and started doing it intentionally. And they all love these pictures. So light your pictures, but then do something like this and it'll give you a little variety. And notice how the glasses, their champagne glasses are kind of highlighted there. I love it. This is one other thing I wanted to kind of point out is this is the first dance. This is a picture that Philip took as well. When you're doing the first dance pictures, be aware of the background because it's so nice when the bridal cake or some of the bridal decorations or maybe gift table or something to do with the wedding or maybe the sign-in table, something like that is behind them, or maybe her bridal portrait or their engagement picture, anything like that, rather than a big crowd of people looking at them, which you might want to get a couple of those, but always try to get something like this that's isolated. This is one of my favorite pictures from their wedding. I'm going back to the cake. So that's about all the wedding pictures I have to go over. And if anybody wants to see anything again or ask any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I know one of the things that just moving to mirrorless, at least in the Nikon, they got that pinpoint focus, and for doing the ring shots and stuff, it's just amazing. No more taking 20 to try and get the whole thing in focus. You can go right in on the stone, and it just grabs it. It's amazing. That was one of the things that as soon as I discovered that, it's like, okay, I got a whole new tool.
You know
just
what?
a fine focus.
That's one thing that and I know you noticed that some of those ring pictures were not real sharp. The ones in the studio were sharp, but the ones at the wedding, they were not tack sharp. And that's because of that. And a lot of it is because of natural lighting as well. But yeah, I would have loved to even had my 105 prime lens or something, a macro lens, or I didn't have that when I was doing all this. But yeah, I would certainly do it differently now. On my 80, that one was real sharp. I have an 80 prime that's really good for that. Yeah.
What as you later on in the years, what kind of you I know we're talking about the posing, grouping, and things, but what was your main off-camera flash that you were using toward the end?
Toward the end, I was using my alien bees with a umbrella modifier. I would use my SB800, my Nikon flash for fill, and then use my alien bees for main light. And I would usually have two of them later. I didn't relish bringing all that stuff around, because the older I got, the lazier I got. But I was working with two assistants the last few weddings I did, and I took advantage of that. And not only, back to the assistants, not only did they help me and they anticipated what I needed, they also covered where I couldn't cover. They would do balcony shots. They would do shots from the back of the church. While I was photographing something at the reception, they would be looking around for some candidates. I mean, they got amazing pictures. And the most pictures I ever came back with to edit through was like about 1,200. I never did shoot and spray, is that what they call it? My average, the average the average pictures that the bride and groom would see would be maybe 300.
Mm-hmm.
So, any more than that, I'm thinking it's boring. I don't know what other people think, but that's what I think. I don't know.
I usually have about 300, but I
Uh-huh.
don't
Yeah,
do a lot of weddings, but I have about 300
Yeah, that's
for
I
them.
can't. Yeah, I can't hardly make it come out to more than that.
Mm-mm.
And honestly, and that was with 3 cameras. That was with 3 cameras going. So
How long has it been since you've photographed weddings? How long have
the
you been
last
retired?
the last wedding I photographed was probably 3 years ago.
So
That
I'm just curious, what would you pay an assistant? I know that's kind of off topic, but
well, now that would depend. If it's just an assistant, I would probably pay $15 an hour. If it's a second shooter, I would pay $50 or $60 an hour, depending on their experience. I would usually give Leah $150 for the weddings. It didn't matter how long they were. They usually we would average about 6 hours. I've only done one wedding that we stayed over 6 hours.
really, wow,
Yeah,
that's
I
nice.
know. If they wanted pictures leaving, we would stage them leaving. If they wanted pictures getting ready, gosh, how long does it take to get dressed?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, even like this last wedding I did, when we got there, we photographed everything. They did the first look. We photographed as much as we could before the wedding, and that was still less than 6 hours. And she was still putting makeup on when we got to the church, so she didn't have her dress on. None of the bridesmaids weren't even all there yet, and we started 2 hours before. So we would usually start 2 hours before the ceremony. work through even the longest Catholic ceremony is usually no more than an hour. So, and then the reception, by the time you're 2 hours into the reception, people's leaving and ready to go home and all that. So, that's
Mhm.
5 hours.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And now between the ceremony and a lot of times we would spend like 30 minutes between the ceremony and the reception. And so that, depending on what the bride and groom wanted, sometimes we'd go to a location and shoot, and sometimes we would just go directly to the reception. Sometimes the reception and the wedding's in the same venue. So in that case, that makes it even shorter to me.
Yeah, I like them when they're all in one place.
Oh, me too. I've had I once did a wedding where we started in Elton. We did pre ceremony pictures in Elton. Then the wedding was in Oberlin. And then the reception was I don't even remember where the reception was. It was in a different town. We went to the pre-wedding was at the Coshada Country Club. And then the wedding was in Elton, and the reception was in Oberlin. So everything was just, man, we just spent so much time on the road. It was ridiculous. Yeah. So, and when I first started, of course I was cheap, and as I went on and got more experience, I raised my prices, and then I got to where I'm like, I was shooting weddings, two weddings a weekend, almost every
Oh my
weekend.
gosh.
So it was time to raise prices. So I raised my prices. The less expensive package I had was $1,500. So and I think my top package was like 35 at the
Were you
time.
offering an album with it?
I was, yeah. Yeah. And well, not with the 1,500.
Mm-hmm.
And no digital files. So, depending on what they want, like this last wedding I did, they wanted digital files. So she got the package. The one I did before that, they wanted digital files. So I charged her $1,000 to shoot the wedding and $1,000 for the files. So I probably underpriced it, but it was a small wedding, so it wasn't.
Yeah, I've started shooting weddings again. I pretty much had stopped, and then I like them.
Uh-huh.
They're a lot of work, but I'm just finding that, kind of like they all just want their files. And I
Yes.
just like offering an album with it. And then I have a wedding coming up on Saturday. Literally, I just told her I'd charge her an hourly fee. It's, they're renewing their vows, and I'm literally shooting and burning just what they
Yeah.
want.
If you
Mhm.
started with film, which did you start with film?
I did. Yeah.
So it's a whole
Just-
other
yeah.
thing. I mean, and then you have to evolve. You have to
Mhm.
you have to stay with it, get with it. And I don't know. I just like, I never, we were taught never to let go of your negatives, never to sell your
Yeah.
negatives. And that's what a file is. That's what a digital file is, your negative. That's what,
Right.
oh,
And I do where, I tell them, hey, if you want to buy your digital files, it's, $1,000 for the wedding. How do I do it? Anyway, it's about $2,500 for the bridals, the engagement, the wedding, and the reception.
yes.
But they usually just want the wedding and the reception.
Yes, that's let me unshare the screen if we're through with the pictures.
But I do an album, and but again, I'm not doing a whole bunch of them. And it's just the people around here that are doing weddings. It's a $2,500 wedding, and they give you a thumb drive of images, and
yeah, that's
I
about
want to
what I did too.
I want to see the pictures in print, you know.
I know. I agree with you. I want to see an
Yeah,
album.
I
Mhm.
know. I know the albums are so nice. And I have 2 granddaughters and a grandson that got married in the last 3 years. none of them have an album.
Isn't
None of
that
them.
sad?
It is. And
Gosh.
you know, the first one that got married, Gabby, the one that you were talking about, Gretchen, that was so pretty.
So Philip didn't do an album for their package?
I could have bought one with an album, but
Okay.
I was paying, so you know, we can just get he offered the digital, so I can make an album.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to pay for the album. I'm not gonna, I mean, I'll do the design and all that, but I'm not gonna furnish
Wow.
their album.
But that's
Yeah,
it.
I'm
You
gonna
know,
get a
it's 10
copy
years
of.
down the road or 3 years down the road, they haven't done an album yet.
I know.
Do you do an album that's like the book? The difference between a book and an album, like, is
Yes.
there's a different, you know, like you do the book or you do an album where you putting the pictures in.
I've always done albums, but y'all, I had a bride one time that had a nice album, the old art leather albums that she put the images in.
8x10s in.
She brought that back to me one time in pieces. She wanted me to copy some pictures from it. I don't even think I had the negatives anymore, but she wanted me to copy some pictures. And that album was just totally disassembled. I could not. It almost made me cry.
Did
y'all.
she disassemble it or what?
Yeah, she did.
Ah,
And what I think she, you know, she may have been scanning some of the pictures. I don't know.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have my parents' album that's just 8x10s, just 8x10 on each page, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do for mine, but I don't know where my pictures are. It don't matter anymore. We divorced after 2 years, so it didn't matter. But you know, now it's like, I remember one lady saying about how they didn't even offer like a parent book, you know, where you, I call those a proof book, basically, like, you know, printing pretty much the gallery of 4x6s and putting them in a 3-slot book, you know, album kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what she was like. They didn't even offer us like a parent book, and I'm like, okay, because that was the 80s, 90s when we did that, you know, when we were doing that. But now, you know, they don't want that. They don't even look for that. And I want that. I want that. I want the 8x10 book, you know, to flip through.
It's so nice to hold that in your hand. And
I'll
look
probably
at
do
them.
that with Sarah's pictures once I get them.
Mhm.
I'm still, it's almost a year.
Gosh, wow.
I know.
Curious.
It's actually 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, it'll be a year. So
Wow.
Oh.
I gotta hunt down Florina. So
I'm a little curious. What's the difference between an album and a book? I just looked it up on the internet. And
I'll show you. I'll show you since I have it. My bride from March hasn't picked her stuff up yet. So this is an album. See, it's a book with the pictures like this. This
Oh,
is an
wow.
album, right?
Okay.
Is that what y'all consider an album?
That looks like an album, but
Well, yeah, that's old school for me. I used to do
Right,
a
that's
proof
what-
book with the proofs that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then the book,
exactly.
and then this is the book, like, right? Is that what y'all, or do you do this as an album too? Like this is the book, and the pages are here, like that, right?
I would consider, is that press printed?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I call that a book. An album I call is something that's like nice, that sits on a coffee table, that's leather, you know.
Okay, so the album, so an album is still printed though. It's printed,
But
like
it's
the
printed
pictures
on
are printed.
photograph paper and it's usually mounted and sprayed.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's just me though. That's me, what I consider an
well, no, I mean at that,
and I
that's the
don't do
concept,
proof
like-
albums like that one album that you did. I don't do those anymore. That's what I started out doing whenever I shot film. I would do a tap proof album like that. And that's what I would give them.
Me
And
too.
then I said, you know, I want to start designing albums. So I started designing albums with art leather. And then right around that time, I mean, it was within a couple years of me doing the art leather albums where we slipped in the mats and the prints is
Oh,
when we
yeah.
went digital. And then I just started doing digital albums
Yeah, you
or
make your
digital.
composites and
Yeah, digital albums.
Well, so the album is the more expensive one than the
That's
book.
from, yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is when you order them, how the printer, the labs.
But
they
do
have
you
like
design it with only one picture a page, or do you design it like?
I mean, you can do it however. Yeah.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, Gretchen, I think I would call a slip-in album.
Yeah, yeah.
People would know the difference, know that it's, so they know what you're talking about.
Okay.
So older
That-
people,
That's how that's how I differentiate them. Like
Mhm.
the album is like slipped in 3-ring binder kind of thing as an album to me, but it's
Do
so
you
I have it
use
backwards.
fillers for your albums when you're ordering albums?
Could you repeat that, Kathy?
Yes. Do you use Millers?
I do.
Okay. Gretchen Millers, if you go on their website, you can read about the album and the books. And they're 2 different prices.
Right, yeah, because that's I use Black River, right? Yeah, Black River. I use them.
They do some nicer ones too. I
Yeah.
use them in the beginning. I use H&H primarily now for my books and albums, and okay, I kind of differentiate the books. Actually, H&H has one that it is prints, but they don't have the thick in between the pages. It's still photographic print, but they're just bound back to back. And they're you can get a 10 by 10 20 page for about $100, and they look nice, but it's not that substantial album with the thick pages. And
Okay.
so, but I've been using H&H for a while for those. I bounced around Bay, Black River. I never got comfortable with Miller's Rose system. I mean, they do fast, good work. It's funny how everybody kind of find a lab you're comfortable with and you use it. So
Yeah, but it's like Black River uses Cascade for the book and Rose for the prints. They do 2 different.
So I've got it's actually I won it through PPA. Kind of an off the wall album design program from a guy in Spain, and integrates with Photoshop. So I do the design in it, export the spreads as JPEGs, or you can export them as PSDs. Export them as JPEGs, and that's what I upload to have the album printed from. So I don't design in the lab's design program. I design them myself and then upload the finished files to be printed.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
That's what
I
do too.
use, have you ever heard of Graphy Studio? So I use Graphy Studio for my albums, and they have a baby book, and it's an 8x8 that I usually use, but it's a press printed book, and it's not bad, but it's very inexpensive. And then they have all the way up to the top of the line wedding album book, which is really expensive. And so I pretty much use their whole line of books for different things in my studio. And even the senior album, now they have a senior book, which kind of looks like a yearbook, but it's not bad. I think it's like $90 bucks, maybe $110 whenever I'm done. And, it just makes it easy, and they're just really good. And whenever you tell them, it's from Italy, they're like, oh
yeah.
Yeah.
So I use them for my high school seniors. I use them for my weddings, everything.
And what you said it was? Graphy
Studio.
Graphy Studio. Okay. Have to look that one
And
up.
they have a neat little software program I can't get it on my new Mac, but it's on my old Mac. So whenever I design using their software, I have to design it on my old Mac. And which is like literally on like the next desk behind me. But they have some neat templates. And then you can just kind of, once you get the hang of it, you're just tweaking it, and there's nothing out there like it.
That's good to know. Mhm.
I have to say, I love weddings. I know most people don't anymore, but I do. I love being part of that day with them. I mean, I haven't done too many strangers weddings. I mostly do people I know. So it even makes it more special for me to be part of that, you know. So I
used to love doing them. I just got to where I couldn't, it was just so hard. When you get a little older, you'll.
I know. Hey, I'm
Sunday
not that
morning,
far
you're not
behind.
wanting to get up out of bed.
I don't want to look. Sunday I was hurting after just, I was listening to a podcast this week, and the guy said 1 year he did 83 weddings.
Oh my God. Wow.
How he does Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He does weddings. Like the girl who was hosting it, she was like, I just still can't believe, how could you do that? How can you do that?
Well, if you don't work during the week at another job and you just edit pictures and order albums and stuff.
Yeah, I guess you can if you, I know, like,
Yeah, you get to a point to where a wedding is hard on your body. Y'all, I shot a newborn that got the best of me yesterday. So I
don't
can't
wanna
even imagine wedding.
I'll take a wedding over a newborn any day. No, I don't want to do newborns. No, I am not even trying. I'll take a wedding over a newborn. I'm scared of that. Yeah, but I do. I was kind of like you said, like somebody asked you to take the wedding pictures. I actually did them in the 90s with, my rolls of film, kind of thing. But I did weddings. I've always loved to do weddings. And
I used to love it too.
I mean, obviously, like you did so many, and I got some ideas now. Got some ideas.
I love weddings. My body doesn't love them anymore.
Exactly. Do you have help, Gretchen?
I had one helper, Joel, once. I mean, the wedding, most of the weddings I do are really small, and I don't charge enough to really financially be able to have a helper. But he did a second shoot for me with one wedding, and I went back and started looking at my prices, like, okay, I need to put this in, because having a second shooter was definitely worth it. Like this weekend, she didn't even have like 75 people at the wedding, so I just couldn't have somebody. But
even if they're not shooting, Gretchen, to have somebody to help you pose those groups and to help you wrangle the families and the kids, and talk to the DJ, because that's another thing. Communicating with your DJ is a biggie.
Oh yeah, that was an issue with this venue we were at this weekend. It was like totally, we walked out from the ceremony into, they already had the champagne glasses full of champagne at the cake table. I was like, what are we doing? She's like, oh, we do that so you can just get the pictures done and over with. I'm like, no, we have to get the party started. I gotta let the party get started before we take the cake pictures. What are you doing? So it was just really kind of confusing, when the venue takes it over.
What I like to do is I will ask the DJ to not play so loud while we're taking the pictures, because it gets to the point that you cannot communicate with those people.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that Leah would do, because she would run back and forth from me to the bridal party and do the posing. But if it's too loud, man, the one that Phil did for my granddaughter, they had that music up so loud that nobody could talk to anybody during any of the reception. It was really uncomfortable. So when I was doing a lot of weddings, I would go to the DJ and I would tell the bride and groom this beforehand, that and ask them if they could talk to the DJ, and then I would talk to them as well, and just ask them just to turn go ahead and play, but not at that real loud volume that they're gonna go at later, because it's miserable. Y'all, my ears ring constantly because of that. My ears.
What a so Lela, we're kind of getting toward 8. If you could boil it down to 2, 3, 4 tips for working with groups, and then if there's something that related to lighting that goes together with it, what would be the kind of things that you'd say, looking back, what are the things that really, just those little things that you probably don't even think about anymore, that just made the difference or smooth things out? So obviously having an assistant or a second shooter was one of them. What else?
That's the main one. I would say communicating with your bride and groom, what's expected during the day, and organizing a plan before the day. I usually would have them talk to the DJ. I got to where we wanted to do the first dance as soon as they walked in and were introduced into the reception. So I would make sure everybody was on the same page as that. And then to have the music lower at a lower volume. Communication is a biggie. That's probably more important than the assistant. And as far as lighting, I would say if you're doing outdoor pictures, always have a strong field flash, and watch your lighting, make sure that there's light in the people's eyes and that they're not backlit to where the background goes all out, blown out, and you have to use Photoshop to lighten the people enough to recognize them. It's just, just the lighting, just at least use a field flash on your on-camera flash for outdoors. My grandson got married, and I wasn't in charge of anything to do with the photography, and the photographer that they had did a wonderful job indoors. He set up lights, he had off-camera flash set up, and he did a wonderful job, but the ceremony was outdoors, and it was at a time of the day that was not ideal, and the sun was setting and everybody's was going down in everybody's faces, and the lighting was horrible. It was horrible. And so I would say probably at least using some kind of field flash for outdoors. And
do you put that by the bride and groom though? Like, would you put that
on camera?
No, oh, on camera, not off camera. Okay, yeah, I had yeah.
There's all kind of lighting setups you can do in your reception, and that's for an outdoor ceremony, Gretchen. Because the lighting, you have very little control over the lighting outside, so you want to at least have a field flash, and you want to have it powerful.
Thank you. Yeah,
I used to shoot.
Go ahead.
I used to shoot with bare bulb. I had a big old quantum Q flash.
I remember. Yep.
Remember those? I had a couple of
them,
and they were very powerful. And when I was outside, I'd put a little half reflector on it, and man, that thing it was wonderful.
Those quantums were definitely well worth their money.
And they were expensive, but like you said, they were worth it.
And I'm telling you, I used them up until maybe 2.5 years ago. I was using quantums until then.
I killed one. I got one that still works, but I don't ever use it.
Yeah.
But yeah, those things were awesome. And there's so many choices in lighting now with all this off-camera flash now. That's the thing. If people would learn it and just use it.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Does
So,
anybody else have any more questions or anything?
What are the rest of y'all using for that, like in place of the quantums or your outside lighting?
I'm Godox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the main thing I'm using now is the 8300 Pro. It's the kind of that in between one, but it's so
Uh-huh.
small. It's, it's maybe a couple of stops less than the big one, but unless you're out in bright sun, if you're using it for fill, it's plenty of light and
Mhm.
great for on location work, headshots and things.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much easier to set up and to carry. It's been
Yeah,
I
that's
working
just
what I
well for me.
switched
I
to.
mean,
I
everybody
switched to the
kind of has their,
Godox.
yeah, everybody has their sweet spot, but that's been working well for me.
I haven't ventured out into that just yet. I still just use my flash for fill. That's all. I
Okay.
actually brought a speed light with me with a box Saturday, and it stayed in the corner because the place was a little more brightly lit than usual, and I don't know. I think I was just too much into
But
working that I didn't go set the light up even by the cake. I was
yeah,
like,
I mean, I was doing some running and gunning on a job this morning. I was photographing the chancellor of the technical college, and he wanted, there's this like famous hallway shot that they always get in front of these windows. And, but I needed, it wasn't too badly backlit, but I needed something in. So, I knew we were going to be walking around and it was a limited amount of time. So I didn't bring a softbox. I had the Phil's famous light on a stick with the stove in, because
Mhm.
really I just needed to fill him out, raise the ambient a little bit and fill him out to balance out those windows behind him, and then to kick a little light in his eyes when we went outside. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it's like, it's not one tool, it just depends on what you're doing and where you're working.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, well, I hope thank Lela for doing this program. Thank you so much. We got another one scheduled for November 30th with Patrick on a Thursday night. Kind of having that be our regular Zoom virtual member to members. And then Bernie's doing one on the
Kathy's got to
Bernie,
stand in.
yeah, we got an in-person one. So if anybody wants to come on down to Kenner, we'll be in Kenner on the 12th. And Bernie's going to do a program on photography, what works in photography. That's his program. So that's what's coming up next for our member to members. And thank you again, Lela. And I hope y'all all enjoyed it and will join us, again when we do have some planned in 2024 also. So having a little regular time. Oh, and we're gonna start a program next month in November where we're gonna do a challenge, and then have we'll do a challenge in November, and in December we'll come together and talk about it. So we're gonna do that in the next couple months. So I hope y'all join us for that. We're still working out the logistics. I have a Facebook page already set up, and we'll be getting that together in the next week or so that everybody can join us doing that. All right. Well, I think that's it for tonight. And again, thank y'all so much.
Thank y'all for
Thank you,
listening.
guys.
I hope everybody
Thank you,
picked up
Lela.
something good.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it because I like seeing it and getting ideas, and we always can use those. So thank you very, very much.